Welcome to the Moving Forward podcast. This is your host. I almost said horse. I was literally thinking, don't say horse, don't say horse, don't say horse.
Well, it's just audio, so really our listeners have no way of knowing for sure that you're not a horse.
I could be Mr. Ed. You've got no idea. Welcome to the Moving Forward podcast. This is your host, Corey Cottrell, and with my partner in Andrew Yang and bipartisanship love, Rio Verdenier.
I thought you were going to say Yang Gang Crime.
I should have said that. That would have made way more sense. Actually, Rio is just here to come up with the one-liners that I missed, the easy one-liners that I missed. So today,
yeah, that's like low-hanging fruit, man. Come on,
it really is. I missed the boat on that one because I'm a horse, dude. So we're going to cover making taxes fun and life skills education in all high schools, which is a couple of fun topics. Rio, to put you on the spot, is there anything that you want to mention before we get rolling?
I'm looking forward to talking about the making taxes fun part.
Me too.
But part of me is like, I would like to just make taxes lower and easier, but Yang is also doing those things. So let's talk about making them fun. Let's get lighthearted for a second.
Let's do it. All right. So currently paying taxes is a slog. Instead, let's make it a celebration. Revenue Day, the day taxes are due, should be a federal holiday. That day should feature celebrations. Each American should be able to direct 1% of their taxes to a specific project. I love that part. During Revenue Day, these projects will be highlighted, showing what exactly America's money was able to accomplish during the previous year. Initial profiles of the next year's projects will also be announced so people can get excited for them. The quote, running the economy like a business means adopting basic things like appreciating your constituents. If someone pays taxes, that's great. And we should make him or her feel like they contributed to important things that make people's lives better. Revenue Day should be a day of joy and celebration for our national community. Problems to be solved. Taxes are viewed as a burden instead of a contribution to our shared society. Tax day is dreaded, not celebrated. So as president, Andrew Yang will create a federal holiday on the dates that taxes are due, provide a report to every taxpayer with a breakdown of where their tax dollars go, Social Security, military, medical, research, etc., with shared video stories of what their tax money makes possible. Allow each American to direct 1% of their taxes to a specific project, department, or activity of government, example, Veteran Affairs, National Endowment for the Arts, etc. Bring 2 taxpayers who filed their taxes early from each state to a celebration of the White House with members of Congress on Revenue Day. I love everything about this. Like,
yeah.
Just straight up. You know, like so many people forget that taxes are because we've decided to make a shared civilization. And if you like this civilization, that's the only reason why we have it, right? Somalia doesn't have good taxation. It's a crappy, stupid country with warlords, right? Like there's a reason why all of this stuff works. And, you know, we can and will disagree on the level of taxation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right?
I don't know if we actually do anymore. I don't know. We'll talk about that.
But I mean, reasonable people could, right? And should.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Part of the discussion. But I think just changing that nuance. And again, this is one of those things he could do right off the bat. Like, no, let's start talking about what we do and start measuring it and start measuring the successes and celebrating those things and connecting people with this democracy so that maybe you're incentivized to vote a little bit more. Maybe you're incentivized to not just throw your hands up and say, fuck it, and vote for people like Trump, you know, like that. This really speaks to, I think, what will bring people back into the narrative to make it feel like a shared project instead of a burden.
Yeah. I do like the idea. It actually, you hinted at this just now, but it actually ties into his human capitalism concept. And much like the human capitalism concept, it is something that the executive could actually do, doesn't require Congress. So like he could totally pull that off. Even though an executive could also undo it, I don't think anybody would undo it because much like the human capitalism idea, it's not partisan. It's just a kind of good idea that will be popular and people won't want to reverse. I do think that the idea specifically of like keeping track of and making sure that the American people know how their hard-earned money is actually being spent by the government is a really good one because first of all, if people find out how it was spent, and it should be transparent, you know, some people might not like the way some of it was spent, and that might motivate them to vote for people who are going to change that. And I think that's great. Yep. but also, as you said, it makes it a celebration. It's it's like another 4th of July. It's a patriotic day. It's another excuse to get smashed and eat hot wings, which is like what being American is all about.
I was gonna say, cherry and apple pie can go suck it. That's really what America is all about. Let's face facts.
Oh yeah, it's about barbecues and beer, dude.
Preach.
All right.
This horse endorses that statement.
Maybe I don't. Can you remind us about a couple of the details in the point?
We'll go over. That's a good idea. We'll go over point by point here a little bit. We talked a little bit about the report to every taxpayer that's going to break everything down. Again, you can't really have a positive feedback loop unless people are actually educated about where all their tax money is going. So I think that's clutch. This is the good one. So allow each American to direct 1% of their taxes to a specific project, department, or activity of government. So,
we didn't touch on that yet. Boy,
right. So
a great one.
Right. So I think this is probably going to come from like a preset number of options, right? You can't just say, I want stuffed turtles. It's probably not going to go.
I want it to go to the Rio Verde Near Fund.
Right. Yeah, exactly. The Moving Forward podcast is a fucking national treasure. Okay.
No, but it is though. Seriously.
That's just real.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I think, we did talk. Remember, you and I talked about, Corey, on a previous episode about how, like, in an ideal world, I would want to have a high UBI, and then people were kind of voting with their feet or voting with their dollars rather, and saying like, I want my kid to go to public school, and I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I like the idea of reforming our entire tax code that way and allowing people to have more say in how their tax money gets spent. I understand the reasons why favors of the paternalistic policies that don't trust Americans to make smart decisions wouldn't like that. But part of what I love about Yang is that he's the opposite of that. He's very, very much a standout among Democratic candidates in that respect. Because if you think about it, one of the through lines through all of his policies, including this idea of letting people make a decision about at least how some of their tax dollars are spent, is this idea that like we can trust our fellow Americans to take charge of their own destiny, and the whole point of a democracy is that you're supposed to have some say in how the government is done. So like this is basically just like giving people a vote about how some of their money gets spent. I would like to see it be an even higher number personally.
I think it cracks that wall, right? So, the level of engagement I think that we would see in public discourse in the country, just on if that was the only thing, that 1% thing, if that was the only thing you ever got passed, it would change the country.
It would definitely have an enormous psychological benefit, which is another through line in all of his policies. I mean, I love that with the freedom dividend, he talks about how it gets away with stigma. It makes people feel like everybody is, has a share in our economy. It makes it so that people have a mindset of abundance instead of scarcity, which means that they're less likely to do crazy things. And the psychological benefits of that are enormous. It can't be overstated. I mean, just think about how toxic it is. Part of the reason that we started the show, Corey, is because we're like, what would be cool is if like a progressive and a conservative got together once a week and like talked and didn't yell at each other. You know what I mean? Like it's I like it. You're like
just drawing people in, and then honestly, we're gonna get together, and then we're gonna get up a little close to the microphone. It's gonna be good, man. And then we're just gonna talk,
and it's just gonna be a love fest. But in a way that really there is something our country needs healing like that. As we've said a couple of times, like I think it's good for there to be disagreement. You just said about tax policy,
right?
Reasonable people can disagree about things. But the problem is when it becomes more about like a team sport and it's all just about hating on the other side. And currently on both sides, it's all about hating on the man, hating on elites, hating on representatives. It seems everybody loves their own representative and hates everybody else's representatives. I mean, it's just so toxic. Yes, we should have reasonable disagreements, but we don't have to get nasty about it. Goodness.
Yeah. We're allowed to, and that's the thing too. Like we decided, hey, like why don't we consider we agree on the Yang thing? That's fun. Why don't we just try and find consensus? And then accidentally we just like always do almost.
We've definitely agreed to disagree on a few things. But like actually, since we're sort of talking about tax, let's do that. Let's do the little experiment. Like, what would your ideal like tax system rate be?
That is an interesting. Okay, so like what? I would absolutely put in whatever was required to institute a maximum wage. When we were talking before, like somewhere between, I think you said somewhere between 10 and 50 million.
Well, let's be honest. People who are earning that much are on a salary. It's not a wage.
Whatever, right?
I get.
Like it's just language. Like and I'm talking like capital gains, the whole 9 yards. The amount of money by which your wealth increases per year from any source has a maximum. And the reason it's not to punish freaking Jeff Bezos. I don't care about Jeff Bezos. The whole point is I am horrified at the fact that democracy is already dead. We live in an oligarchy and the rich people run the whole freaking thing. So removing excess power from the top is something that I think about a lot. But also like the fact that even just think about it globally, the top 100 people could create a world of abject, unbelievable abundance for every single person walking on the face of the earth, but they want a bigger fucking boat. That just doesn't.
Well, everybody wants a bigger boat.
And this is the thing. Well, here's the thing. Because we talk all the time, like innovation and wanting to, I'm inventing cryptocurrencies now. This is what I'm doing as my 18th side project, right? So like, I want to get up to the 10 or 25 million, and I'm sure if I got up to 25 million, I might want a little bit more. But I think that wanting 50 or 100 or just going completely and totally bananas is an illness because there's a cost to that. There's a cost.
Yeah, and practically speaking, there are a lot of ways of getting around that. And of course, a lot of high earners' incomes don't come from salaries. So I think what you're talking about is essentially basically a cap on earnings of all kinds due to basically 100% income tax above a certain amount.
Yes.
And if you did that, there would be extra motivation for people to hide it. You would even probably start giving money.
Oh, dude, I'm not saying it would work. I'm saying that's what I want.
I don't know if it would work. When I answered your question, it was because we love our hypotheticals. But
yes.
I understand the motivation behind it. I think it'd be interesting to give some serious thought to a practical way of accomplishing something along those lines.
If that could, right?
I guess what my question in this case, this particular hypothetical, was more like, what would you want the tax rate to be? First of all, what would you consider a middle class income? And secondly, how much of their income should they have to give the federal government?
So that's such a dynamic question that I don't often think about it framed in that way. So if to me, middle class is anyone making under 100 grand, as a combined family.
Really? That's an interesting definition. Who's lower class then? They're all in the middle.
anyone under the poverty line.
Okay, so you're talking. That's not a terrible definition. Okay, so you're talking about above the poverty line and below 100, but below six figures. Is that for an individual income or a family income?
Family.
Okay. Yeah, so we would have
upper middle class, right? Because I would probably make an upper middle class range, 100 to 250 kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Which I think is it's definitely compared to where you live, right? Like if you live in San Francisco, you make 100 grand a year, you're basically poor.
That's part of the complication, because when you're talking about a federal tax rate, you're talking
right.
Size fits all system. Yeah.
I think the only thing that I would really do, obviously the progressive tax rates for the wealthy, and again, how do you get that? So the VAT tax is really that. I spend way more time thinking about that now because. Again, I bring this up a bunch. It's really worth looking at Chris Hayes. Why is this happening? He did a podcast about taxing the rich and could you even do it? And he and the expert he talked to brings up what you bring up all the time, which is basically not really. Any rich person worth their salt's going to get an accountant that can hide all of that stuff.
That's part of the reason I asked you, because income taxes are taxes on working people. They're taxes on the middle class. Right. They're taxes on the upper middle class, according to your definition. And their taxes on the poor as well. Especially payroll taxes that those fall disproportionately on the working class. So just to go back to your question, using your definition of middle class, because that's actually going through several tax brackets. How much should those people have to give the federal government?
Well, and this is the thing, right? I think up to the poverty line, you shouldn't be doing anything. I think up to double the poverty line, you shouldn't have to doing anything. But the thing, I think we are living because we're time travelers, living in this future where Andrew Yang is president and got the freedom dividend passed on the first day. It was magical. That I think speaks to where we both want that situation to be. Americans right now do not have enough expendable income, period. So I love how you frame the freedom dividend actually as a middle class tax break, because it is. Like, it's not like a tax break that just kind of gets hidden like a child tax credit or some other thing that is means tested or is specific to some particular subgroup or whatever. It's just like every month, you as a middle class person or an upper middle class person, you have $1,000 extra money to do money things with. Yeah. And I think that's
in practice, it ends up being not exactly
right. Makes sense.
Practice, like my family would get $2,000 because we have 2 adults, myself and my wife. I think our loss of OPSA is over 18 in dog years, but I don't think he counts. But yeah, no, I mean, that's 2,000. And then of course that way that works is it goes on top of our income, and then we get taxed on that as well as the rest of our income. So in practice, we're getting a tax cut of less than 2,000 or essentially tax relief of less than $2,000 a month, whatever it ends up being. And we already pay over 2,000 a month now. So we're like our family would still be paying more in taxes than the average person, the average family.
We would too.
But we would be paying less. And what we would do with that money is we would invest it in our local economy. We'd go out and support, like what we do with our discretionary income now. We,
of course,
support local businesses, and we would, we buy more rental properties, and that would be great for the economy because then we're putting contractors to work, remodeling it, and all that fun stuff. And the more rentals there are in town, actually the prices go down. We've talked about this before. So all of that would be good for the economy. So that's part of the reason I put this question that way. Like, I'll tell you, here's what my answer to the question would be. I would define the middle class as whatever it costs to be able to own a home and at least one car, go on vacation once a year, and put 2 kids through college on a single income. That's what I think that should be like our target.
That's the cap.
To have as many people as possible.
Oh yeah,
in that category, right? 100%. And I what I think is up to that point, up to the point where you're earning enough to do that, they shouldn't have to pay any income taxes.
Sold.
Okay, cool. Well, there you go. I changed your mind about something. I also
I agree. And here's the thing, like, on the back of that, right? Figuring out how to handle the balance sheet of that.
Right.
The idea that you would turn around and cut Social Security or welfare in a non-Andrew Yang world, then I would be hard no, right? But having that as a goal to get to that point, then I mean, really, we're trying to make sure that to your point that everyone is living that really strong middle class on one income. Like, that's awesome, right? And my only priority would be making sure that we, weren't leaving the poor people to go just live under rocks to accomplish that goal.
Yeah, totally. I agree. And I think you'd also agree that the burden of taking care of the poor shouldn't fall on the middle class. It should fall on people who are actually rich. And under our current system, it's exactly the opposite of that. The middle class, according to the definition I just gave, which would actually probably be upper middle class by your definition, at least in some places.
Yeah, I agree.
So the right now, those people are paying a higher effective tax rate than the super rich.
By insane, a chunk,
right? Yeah, it's of course, the super rich are still paying more total dollars, but in terms of percentage of their income, they're actually paying less, and that's really effed up. So to address your concern, and Yang actually is talking. This isn't just hypothetical. Yang has said a couple of times in public that he wants to eventually phase out the income tax, and I basically had an orgasm when I heard that. That was like one of the first things I've ever heard. Well, and his reasoning is that, we shouldn't be, it's not actually the most taxing people on their wages and on their salaries is kind of counterproductive. But no, I would keep an income tax over a certain amount. But what I would do is I'd have a flat tax above that middle class cutoff point that we talked about. I'd have a flat tax of whatever it takes, 30, 40%, whatever it actually takes in order to maintain our spending level.
Yeah.
With absolutely no write-offs. So doing your taxes would be super easy. It would be like, okay, you made $250,000. So we're going to tax you at 30% on everything above, I don't know, 100K or whatever it is. And that's done. None of this stupid, hire an accountant and figure out like every possible loophole, which is another thing that benefits really rich people, of course.
Yep. No, I agree.
So, yeah, like we need, like let's clean it up. So there you go. That would be my tax policy.
I like
like
that a lot.
Let's be honest, it's actually not that different from what Yang's proposing, because he's talking about essentially doing away with taxes for most Americans de facto through his freedom dividend, which is a great step in the right direction.
Agreed. I think we're going to end up talking about taxation again, because we'll come back to it over and over again. But we need to get through this, the life skills education in all of high schools.
Excellent.
So we'll run through that real quick. Our current high school curriculum is largely academics focused, putting a primary emphasis on preparing for college entrance exams and the rigors of higher academic institutions. This does a disservice to all of our children who don't plan to go to college, focusing instead on a trade or other path in life. While preparing those who wish to go to college should continue to be a focus of our high school education system, we need to do more to prepare our children to function in the world independent of further education. The curriculum should expand to cover things such as financial literacy and planning, interview skills, communication and managing conflict, preparing healthy meals, physical fitness, time management, positive psychology and resilience, healthy use of technology. These skills are arguably more important to success in life than geometry, and yet we force students to learn more of the latter than the former. Our education system should shift to include these life skills. The purpose of education should be to enable a citizen to live a good, positive, socially productive life, independent of work and further education. We need to make school more relevant to our young people by teaching them things they might actually use every day. Emphasizing rote academic skills in the age of supercomputers is not preparing our people for what's to come. That sentence, I'll just read that again and the show will be over. Problems to be solved for students who aren't planning to go on to higher education or high school curriculum. Our high school curriculum includes a lot of materials that won't be relevant in their lives. For all students, a large portion of adulting is ignored, sending these children to live on their own without the basic tools needed. As president, Andrew Yang will promote leaders in the Department of Education that promote life skills education at least as much as higher education. Promote leaders in the Department of Education who envision trade skills as an educational path in secondary school, and considering that code is now being written by computers, that's probably a good idea. All right, Rio, what's your hot take?
One of these days, we're going to get to a policy of his that I disagree with.
Someday, maybe.
Yeah, my wife and I are highfalutin elites with fancy educations, and so I don't have any problem with people going to college. That's great. I think Yang is absolutely right, though, that for most people, you don't necessarily need to understand theoretical mathematics or whatever. Like you can, yes, we should be teaching that stuff, but also let's prepare people for real life, right? And this ties in really well with I love the way Yang's platform fits together like a jigsaw puzzle. It's just beautiful, right? It's like this totally ties in with his overall vision about like the way that our economy needs to transition into this new information age. Because right now the jobs that a lot of the jobs that people would be preparing for in college are going to get automated away, or already are being automated away.
Yep.
Like, let's face it, most people who go to college don't wind up, on top of their own like major law firm or something like that, right? They wind up being like a clerk or something, right? And those are like middle level jobs that are less creative, that require either intellectual or manual repetitive tasks. Those are going away. Whereas like if you have somebody, who's studying to be a plumber or something that's harder to automate. I mean, I guess that's a manual task and you could say it's repetitive, but like it's not the kind of thing that machines can do, and they're not going to be able to do for quite some time. So it just makes economic sense. Also, frankly, like plumbers make a good amount of money in many cases.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to earn as much or more than you would as a law clerk. And you could actually live in a small town and do it, which means that your money's going to go further, right? So, you're a law clerk in LA or San Francisco or New York, you're basically poor, right?
Yep.
That person would be better off as a plumber in like the Midwest somewhere. So yeah, no, I mean, I think it makes smart economic sense. I like the idea of teaching people. I don't remember whether or not this was specifically mentioned in that policy of his, but I've heard him say it elsewhere when he's been asked about it. We need to teach like civic skills too. We need to teach people how do you tell the difference between, like credible information on the internet and nonsense, right?
And how do you vote? Would solve that, but yes.
Yeah.
one of the other ones that I really like this.
I don't know. I studied English literature is mostly about just like learning like weird like theories that they have nothing to do with reality too. There's a little bit of that everywhere.
That's true, but I think little known fact, I was about a year away from finishing an English master's and PhD degree. And my track was to be an English professor, and then I met all the English professors, like, nah, and then I picked up the guitar.
Yeah, no, when I was in college, as an undergrad, I was already earning more money than my professors, so I knew academia was not a good way to go.
Yeah, it's like, wah, wah, wah. But the idea,
I mean, by the way, like we should say, like that's a low bar. Most professors do not earn enough money. Yeah, so which goes to also another point of Yang's in education, which is like, well, if professors are underpaid in most cases, where the hell is all this tuition money going, right? It's going to all this administrative bloat. He's so right about that.
Agreed. But the idea that we would start prioritizing things like positive psychology and resilience, there's so much science on that now. We should be training, and some schools, to their credit, are doing this, but we could be training like Zen, mental fitness superstars. And I think in the world that's coming, where you're going to have to absolutely adapt to technology changing by orders of magnitude every 5 years, and then every 2 years, and then every frickin' year, that may be the single most powerful gift that we can give to our kids that are coming up into this world that's going to be, changing, on the daily. It's going to be just like that. But yeah.
And I mean, you see millennials like, complaining on Twitter about the difficulties of adulting every day, and people like to make fun of it, and they say like, well, that's just because they're a spoiled generation, never learned anything. No, it's because like it's getting harder to adult when you're in student debt, and you can't get a job that actually pays enough. It's like, I'm very sympathetic to that. Like, yes, let's teach useful skills, and let's be realistic about the fact that in many people's cases, it makes more financial sense to just get a job after high school, or to do like some training that's not necessarily college for a little while, on the job learning, something like that. Yeah. Because, you're not, instead of having, $50,000-$100,000 in debt, you could actually just like, rent for a little while, a cheap place, buy it with some roommates, then buy a house. And, by the time, like instead of spending 5-10 years in college, you could actually just like be moving up the ladder. I think that among millennials, the people who went straight into work on average are probably doing better.
I completely and totally agree. And I go back to the automation curve. The jobs like truckers and people who work at Amazon, assuming there's any left, those jobs are obviously going to get automated away. But the white collar jobs are next. Like the law clerks, no one needs them. All of this can be automated. A lot of the
well, yeah, I mean, for a long time they were doing a super useful service, and like let's not rat on them, right?
No. Like,
but you're right. I mean,
it's all going to be computerized.
Artificial intelligence will be able to do it better and cheaper, and
that's right.
I'm sure that scares the hell out of people who spend a lot of time learning these skills.
I hope it does. Right, like that, like the radiology.
Vote for Yang. That's all I can say. Vote for Yang.
100%. If you're in radiology right now, the AIs that are first to market are 10,000 times better at your job than you are. Your job's over. It's not good. It's not good at all. You're going to want the freedom dividend around for sure. But that's the plumbing example that you brought up is something that I think about all the time. So my brother just got into it. It really will be one of the most resilient jobs for automation. It's really, really hard to get the fine motor skills on a robot that's going to be able to do that kind of ridiculous work. And to your point, 10 years of schooling or 5 years of schooling or whatever it is, and a massive load of debt from all of the corporate profit mongering that's going on in the school system right now. And you're just not going to be ahead. To your point, you can get a degree and then you're coming out and you're being an intern for a while or whatever.
Well, and we also made it so that student debt, you can't, even if you declare bankruptcy, you can't get rid of it. It's you know what I mean? Like Trump's declared bankruptcy, 5 times or something. He can get away with it, but like a regular person who just went to college because everybody told him like you'll be able to get a good job, and then it turns out that was a lie. That person's screwed. Like that's
forever. Yeah,
I would love to see. By the way, we can talk about it because, I guess Elizabeth Warren has a tax a policy about forgiving taxes, but of course she's doing the typical leftist mistake of making it means tested. Like then what? So like if it's like it's people under 100,000 or yeah, over 100,000, you can't get it. And it sounds like a lot of money, but we just talked about that's not a lot of money in some places.
Yeah.
And if it's two incomes earning it, then like one of them might as well quit, because then they can get their student loans forgiven. It's like a motivation to be less productive. That stuff pisses me off so much, Elizabeth Warren. Please just get rid of the means testing, and then I would go from hating that policy to liking it.
Isn't that interesting though too? Like, because I think
I'm sure she listens to our show too, right?
Elizabeth Warren totally right now. And honestly, like generally speaking, I'm a huge fan. But yeah, now the more I think about the means testing thing, the only thing that's saying is we don't have enough money to do this with everyone, right? But we do.
That's it. I don't think that's it. I think it's because there is this like hatred of quote rich people.
No,
and they think that like two people earning 100,000 a year, that means they're getting like 50,000 each, and then after taxes they only get to keep a fraction of that, and then on top of that they don't get the same opportunity we're getting everybody else from this policy. That just pisses me off.
Yeah. Okay, it's not malice.
But no, if she changes it, then I'll change my tune and I'll say okay, cool, I support that policy.
So she's like, oh, maybe this freedom dividend is a good idea.
That honestly, okay, we got to end the show because we got an interview coming up.
We do have an interview coming up. That's exciting.
Yeah. We're just like cranking out the stuff in 2021 when this is, because time machines. So the man, I just totally lost the plot driving myself into that time machine rant.
What are we talking about?
You were going to say something about Warren, or you were going to say something about the education?
No, I was going to say something about the fact that there will come a day, a week from now, maybe a little bit more, when Andrew Yang is on the same stage as a bunch of these people, and they're going to be forced to start answering questions in a way they have never been forced before about the freedom dividend. And I am very, very curious to see how everyone reacts to this.
We should totally schedule to record like a special episode right after the debates so that we can like kind of go over like, how do we think our boy did, you know?
I think that's a good idea. I think we're going to be hosting a big watch party, but maybe we could kind of incorporate that and do.
My wife and I are celebrating our anniversary by
taping,
getting drunk and watching the debates. So
I love it. I
think we're also going to do a fancy romantic picnic or something, but yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, my wife calls them Marie Antoinette picnics, because that's like what Marie Antoinette used to do. She was like, I'm going to go out in the country and be a farmer, which meant like her servants brought her like foie gras.
Well, let you eat cake. On that note, thank you guys very much for listening to the Moving Forward podcast. We'll be back with more after these short, non-existent messages.